Kesubos Daf test discusses what happens when someone comes with a claim that his wife was not a psula. The questions that need to be answered are, first of all, is he trusted? Is he telling the truth? Second of all, is he right? Does he know what he's talking about? It's possible that he's wrong. And the third thing is, assuming that it's true, is she forbidden to him or not, or is she still permitted to him? So we're going to deal with these questions as we work through the sugya. The Gemara will bring a statement as to what the halacha is. The Gemara will have a couple of questions on it, and the Gemara will refer back to our Mishnah to try to resolve some of them. So let's begin. The Gemara brings the statement. It's a quote from Rabbi Elazar, who's someone who comes and says, Pesach Basuach Matzasi. That is, he says, my wife is not a basula. I know that even though there's no taina, there's no problem that there was no blood from the bia. Rashi says either because she's from a family that never had blood or they lost the sheet. They don't know if there was blood or not. So blood here is not an issue. His only claim is he found a Pesach Basuach. He found an opening. So the halacha is that he is trusted. We assume that he's telling the truth as far as that she is now usher to him. So we've answered three halachas. We said, first of all, he knows. We don't assume that he's wrong. Second of all, he's only trusted to answer himself because he said that he found a Pesach Basuach. He said she's not a psula. So he's not trusted as far as anybody else is concerned. He still has to pay her ksuba. But as far as he's concerned, he said that, so he has to stick with his own words. And the third thing is that the halacha is that if his wife really was not a psula, she's asur to him. So the Gemara is going to deal with this one at a time. So the Gemara says, first of all, you're saying that she's asur to him. Even if it's true that she wasn't a psula, says the Gemara, why should she be asur to him? You have a svek sveka. You have two questions that need to be answered. Both have to be answered yes in order for her to really be asur to him. First of all, it had to be that she was engaged while she was mizana. If she was single while she was mizana, or she was married while she was mizana. If she was totally single before she ever had eros in it to him, even if she was mizana, she's not usher. Second of all, it had to be baratzon. It has to be something that she did willingly. If she was raped, so then even if she was married or engaged at the time that it happened, there's no isser. So the only way you could have is if you answer both these two questions correctly, affirmatively. You say that she was married and was mazana baratzon. That's the only way she's usher to him. This is called a svek sveka. I have two questions. You need the combination of one of the possibilities of both of them to come together. And therefore, out of all the possible scenarios that happened here, you have three ways that she's mutter and only one way that she's usher. If she was raped while she was married to him or engaged, then she's usher. If she was if she was mizana baratzon while she was married to him, then she's usher. If she was either raped or was not married to him at the time that it happened, whether she was raped or it was baratzon, either of those three scenarios shall be mutter. So therefore, we always go svek sveka. We assume that the three scenarios happened, or one of the three, as opposed to the one. So why do we assume that the one scenario happened, that she was mizana baratzon willingly while she was married to him? So the Gemara says two potential answers. Either we're talking that there are two ways in which it has to be that there's only one suffix here, not two sfekos. Number one, we could be talking about a wife of a kohen, in which case it makes no difference if she was ba'onis or was baratzon. If it happened while she was married or engaged to him, she's usher to him. Therefore, the only question is, was she engaged to him? It's a suffix. You have to go l'chumra on one suffix, and he has to assume that she's usher to him, that it happened while she was married to him. Or we could be talking about an Eshes Yisrael, but where he was already engaged to her from before she was 3 years old. That is, her father was makabel kedushin for her. Now she's a gedola. Now she's an adult. So we do have a suffix whether or not it happened ba'ones. It could be that it happened baratzon while she was an adult, because she's an adult now, and they only did nesuin when she was an adult. But they had erusin already from before. And therefore, there was no time in which she was not engaged to him that she could have had a bia and lost her psulim. If she did a bia before she was 3 years old, she would have had her psulim return. That's the mitzvah that the Gemara spells out. Therefore, you have these two scenarios in which she would be asur for sure. So says the Gemara, so then, if that's what we're referring to over here, so then what's the chiddush? The chiddush is that he's trusted. He's trusted in his own ta'asser himself. That's not a chiddush. Anybody who says something happened that as far as he's concerned, he has to stick with his own words. So he's asser to himself. We see that. And the Brisa that says that someone who says to a woman, you married to me, I married you, and she says, no, you never married me. So he's asser to marry her relatives, as if she was really married him, and she is permitted to marry his relatives. He's not trusted to asser her on anyone else or to asser her on his relatives. He has to stick with his own claim. So what's the chiddush over here then? The chiddush is that he's trusted to aser himself. That's not a chiddush. So the Gemara says no. The chiddush is the third halacha. The chiddush is that we assume that he knows and he's experienced enough to be able to claim in Pesach Besuach Matzasi. He knows the difference between a Pesach Besuach and a Pesach Sasam, and therefore he's believed to say that this is the Metzias that he found. Says the Gemara, we have a problem on this entire statement of Rabbi Elazar that it doesn't fit, because we're saying here that she's going to be usher if this really happened. The problem is we have a different statement where Rabbi Elazar says the only way that a woman becomes usher to her husband based on extramarital bia is if it was a ma'aseh sota. You had a kinui and you had a stira. That is, her husband warned her, don't be misyachid with a certain individual. And then we have edim that she was misyachid with that guy, and that's where we have an isser on the husband. Otherwise, there's no isser on the husband. And the reason is because of Ma'aser Shaya, we learned that out from the story of David and Bathsheba. So the Gemara says, hold on a second, this doesn't make any sense. Before we get to your kasha, that Rebbe Elazar doesn't fit with what he's saying here, because here he's saying that he could aser her to him just by saying Pesach Platzuach Matzasi, and there we say you need Kini Estira. This makes no sense, because how could he learn that out from the story of David and Bathsheba? First of all, there was no Kini Estira there, and second of all, she wasn't aser to him. She was permitted to go back to her husband Uriah, and obviously she was, because she went and she married David, and the halacha is asur lebal is asur lebal. If she would be asur to her husband Uriah, she would be asur to David, who was the Boel as well. So says the Gemara. Okay, well, so this is not a kasha. What we're proving is the opposite. We're proving that there she was permitted because there was no kini estira. That's exactly the reason that she was permitted. From here we see that the only way she could have been usher would have been kini estira, would have been the entire process of a sota. Otherwise, there is no isser created, just like by Bathsheba and David, there was no isser created over there. But now we have a kasha though, because how could Rebbe Elazar here say that he's usher when he says Pesach B'Suach Matzasi? There's no kini estira. So the Gemara says, okay, 1 second, let's analyze this. Do you really think there's no way for a woman to become usher to her husband besides for kini estira? What if there's witnesses that she was mezana? That's obviously she's going to be usher. Rashi brings proofs from the psukim. If you have witnesses who say that, we know it's established fact, so it's for sure true. What was Rebbe Elazar saying? He was saying that an eid echad, a single witness, is only trusted with kinoi estira, a single witness to establish that she went and violated his kinoi, she violated his warning, and she went and she was maziachid with that person anyway, and only one eid saw, that works. It's the only situation in which an eid echad can aser a woman on her husband. And Rashi shows that there's a gzeres hakosov that Rebbe Elazar learns that from, that an eid echad is trusted there. What Rebbe Elazar was saying was that an eid echad, if one witness comes and says she was mezana, and there's no kini estira, he's not trusted for that. That there is no issue. However, if you have established fact, you have 2 witnesses who saw it, so then for sure she's aser. That there's no shayla. Here, he's saying Pesach B'Tzuach Matzasi. As far as he's concerned, it's established fact. He's saying that he knows. This is what he experienced. So therefore, as far as he's concerned, she really is usher to him. Now, should you ask why in the case of David and Bathsheba was she really not usher? Machlokes Rishonim why she should be. Rashi says there were 2 edim. Tosfos says David himself knew that she had a bia. He knew that she was usher to her husband and therefore usher to him as well. So how could he go ahead and marry her afterwards? So the Gemara says there's 2 answers to that. Number 1, either David was ma'anes her, she was a victim of an onus, could be because she was a ketana, and therefore it doesn't create an isser on the husband, it doesn't create an isser on the boel either. Or she had a divorce from her husband, like we've learned in a brisa, all the soldiers of David HaMelech's army always gave a conditional divorce document to their wives before they went to war, just in case they were lost, they didn't come back. They shouldn't leave their wives as an aguna. The Gemara says that David HaMelech learned this practice from his father Yishai, who made his sons give their wives a divorce document before they went to war. You see that in the psukim where Yishai sent David to the front to visit his brothers, and he said, "Ves achecha tifkoi l'shalim ves arubasam tikach." Take their arubasam. What's arubasam? Gemara says that's from the word me'uravin beino leveina, something which is between him and her. It's a divorce document between the 2 of them to make sure that they signed it and that they made a shliach, so that they should have this conditional divorce in place. That's what Yishai did. David learned that from his father, and he made all his soldiers do that, and that's what Uriah had done, and therefore she was divorced at the time. There was no Isser created. Now, the Gemara quotes that Abaye says that on the topic of man who says Pesach Pasuach Matzazi, and therefore he is trusted. We're saying that he's trusted, that he knows, he's trusted as far as himself is concerned, that he's usher, and it really creates an isser. Says Gemara, we can learn that from our Mishnah as well. Our Mishnah said that a psul is supposed to get married on Wednesday in order that he should be able to go to court on Thursday, because if he has to wait to go to court, he'll cool off in the meantime. Why do we care about him cooling off? We're afraid that he'll cool off and therefore not make a claim, and the only issue is that he won't have to get out of the ksuba, because if he had gone to court right away, he would have freed himself from the ksuba. Now he's going to cool off and have to give the ksuba. Why would we make a takana to set up that the marriage should be on a Wednesday? So in order he should go to court right away. Why do we care if he cools off and doesn't give the ksuba? So he'll cool off. He won't give the ksuba. Who cares? That's not important to us. The only thing that's important to us is if he'll cool off and he'll stay with her, even though he knows that she's usher to him. So that's got to mean that he had a situation. He found the Pesach Pasuach. He knows that she's usher to him. He's going to cool off anyway and not go to court, and therefore he'll end up staying married be'isr. Says the Gemara, that's a nice proof, but it's not necessarily correct. It doesn't have to be that the case was where he found the Pesach Pasuach. It could be that he saw that there was no blood. And there was a taina that there was no blood. It was a situation where there should have been blood. We have the sheet. She's not from the family that doesn't have hymenal blood. And therefore, there's a straight up taina. She should have had blood. In our case, of Pesach Pasuach, though, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he's not, we don't trust, and he doesn't have to trust, that he's sufficiently knowledgeable to be aware of what's a Pesach Pasuach and what is not. All right, now the Gemara brings another statement here on the same vein. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, somebody who says Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, a step further. Not only is he trusted to make her asa to him, he's also trusted to make her lose her ksuba. She doesn't have the right to claim her ksuba. We assume that not only does he know what he's talking about, he's also telling the truth. Why would we assume that? Maybe he's lying. So the Gemara says because he just made a wedding. If he wanted to lie and he wanted to just get rid of her, he didn't want to stay married to her, why would he go for the expense of paying for the wedding? He would just get rid of her before the wedding. He would save himself the money from the wedding. The fact that he went through the wedding and then came and said Pesach Pasuach Matzazi, obviously he's not lying. If he's not lying, then he really did find the Pesach Pasuach. She really is usher to him. She really was Mazana, and she loses her ksuba. Now ask the Gemara, this is not a chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. In the name of Shmuel, we have a brisa. You can prove this clearly from the brisa. What does the brisa say? Brisa says that somebody who spends time living in his father-in-law's house while he's engaged, while he's in Arusa, cannot come later and claim that his wife was not a besula. So the brisa says that that's only if he was in the region of Yehuda. Now, Yehuda and the Khalil had different customs. In Yehuda, they allowed a Aros and Arusa, an engaged couple, to be misyache, to be alone with each other, in order that they should be familiar with each other before the wedding. That custom often created a situation where they did a bia. So he can't come later and say, at the time of the marriage, when we did Nisuin, she was not a psula. He was misyache with her. He's probably the one who did the bia himself, who took away the psulim himself. There's no claim. Now, all the Brisa says is that he can't claim she wasn't a psula. Now, and it says that it's in Yehuda. The implication is that in Galil he could claim that. Now, what are we talking about? That he's claiming that he's usher to her? If he's claiming that he's usher to her, why would it be a difference between Yehuda and the Galil? Again, the Brisa says that he can't claim Tainas Psulim in Yehuda. Implication, he could claim in the Galil. Two possibilities. He's talking about whether he's trying to aser her, to say that he's aser to her, or he's trying to take away her ksuba. If we're talking about iser, so then the issue is created by the fact that he says, I am not the one who took her psulim away. She didn't have a psulim at the time when I first came to her. She didn't have a psulim. So he knows that. So that should be true whether he's in Yehuda or the Galil. So the Brisa, which is differentiating between Yehuda and Galil, can't be talking about Isser. It has to be talking about Ksuba. And it's saying in Yehuda, he has no claim against her Ksuba because he's probably the one who took her Psulim away. Implication is in the Galil, he does. How do you know? Maybe he's lying. Maybe he said that she wasn't a Psula, and he's lying. He says Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, and either he's lying or he doesn't know what he's talking about. So obviously, we see from this Brisa that he is trusted, he knows what he's talking about, and he's not lying. And the reason must be, like we're saying, because he wouldn't waste money on the wedding. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. It could be talking about where he came with a claim that there was no blood, that they had the sheets and they had witnesses and they checked the sheets and there was no blood there, and therefore we have no issues to trust. This is independently verifiable. we know that she was not a psula. We have evidence. That's where he takes away her ksuba. And that's only true in the Galil, because in Yehuda, she could say, he is the one who took away my psulim while we were engaged. However, Pesach Besuach, he either would not be trusted because it's not a verifiable claim, or maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about.